manage what you can't identify, nor can you relate to other people if you don't understand them. And so the empathy and the personal message really sets the foundation, and those are the two skills that we taught. And the idea in any relationship is to keep going back to that core, because you change and they change. So it's like keeping the communication in the relationship is best practices, a quality relationship. So now, this next skill, it says cooperative problem solving because I changed the name on purpose to collaborative goal setting, because part of this process is taking the problems and getting an idea of the concerns, but then identifying the goals. People are way more motivated to work towards goals than just solving problems. So, so once you have an idea of what everyone's concerns are, or goals, then you can problem solve. And that's why, at this level, responsible decision-making and solving problems is a social and emotional skill. This skill in and of itself is fantastic for building executive function skills, the ability to collaborate, just by doing it with them. Oh, yeah, thank you. You want to just pass them around, and I'll, this one goes the other way. And I'll,
So if you don't have,
yeah,
just, I'm sorry, can you
Yes.
just repeat what you
Yes.
just said? If you don't have personal message, you can't make decisions, or I don't follow.
That's a good question.
Sorry.
That's a great question. So what I mean is that is what the empathy does when you're providing empathy to another person. Not only are they building their own awareness of what they feel and what they're thinking, or what the, in this case, what the problem is. Like if you're struggling with something and I give you empathy, it helps, hopefully, you get clear about, through the process of me understanding you and describing it, you understand it better yourself. And I understand you better. That's what empathy does.
So if you have a hard time making decisions, is that
Okay,
part
so
of the social?
so the skill, being able to problem solve and make decisions, that ability, if that social and emotional skill, it rests on your understanding of yourself and other people, and so when you're in a conflict or you're working with somebody else and there's an issue that has to do with both of you, to come to the best decision, you have to consider everyone's perspectives and also make sure everyone's getting their goals met. And that's what this skill is about. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Glad you asked. So just a review of last session. So personal messages, essentially it's just a way of sharing authentically how you feel in a manner that is non-judgmental and respectful. And it does so many things. First and foremost is it builds mutual respect. If somebody's doing something that you're upset with and you share about how they affect you in a way that is authentic and non-judgmental, you're increasing their respect for you because you're respecting yourself. If you're also building their ability to read social cues just by your relationship with one-on-one with that child. Because when you're authentic, then they can match your actions with what you do, and that generalizes to other people. And then it models effective communication, because if when you're angry or upset, you're saying, I'm upset when this happened, and then you're explaining it, as opposed to saying, you're a liar or you're rude, you're modeling for them how to communicate when they're angry or upset. And that's the fastest way to learn social skills. Like that in and of itself is really powerful. So I think the good news is you have the power to really help kids who are struggling reading social cues just by relating to them in your relationship. So some of the assignments that you read, there was the Briggs article on the safety of non-judgment. Anybody, any comments about that or anything that you took from that really stood out to you?
I would say, yeah, that's the difference in the wording of personalizing it or just, I don't really know how to state it, but I think in general, we all just, good job, or you did a good job was the thing that spoke to me the most, and I found myself saying it with my own child, and then being like,
Yeah.
you didn't do a good job.
I know, there's a funny parenting video running around about that, when you learn all this. I'm not sure if you all have seen it, but it's like these two moms sitting around and they're like, oh, I did the worst thing today. I told my son that he did a good job. You think that's bad? I told my son he was good at school. Like, it's just, but there's a lot. Bad moms.
Yeah, it came out.
I was excited to see that. I think that's gonna be a big hit.
Oh, yeah.
A friend of mine has a shirt that says bad mom, or a baseball hat.
Ah.
I think we need that, and then it says Mariposa on the back. It's like the Brene Brown, like embrace your bad mom.
But that's the worst thing. I'll take it.
Yeah. So yeah, I loved how, I think the message to me was that when you share, when you're really able to be open and honest, it builds trust. So the empathy builds trust, but also being open builds trust. And the Brene Brown piece that kind of weaves into all of this is that when you avoid, if you're upset or angry about something that's bothering you and you don't share it, you're actually doing the relationship a disservice because it will build resentment, which will sabotage it. It's like permission to say how you feel. Which brings us to the Brene Brown. That was 49 to 63. How comments, questions, reflections on the Brene Brown chapters? Other vendors really like it.
So I got to the part where, Melissa, you had said last week about you have to really love yourself in order to teach your kids.
Yeah.
And that really hit home, and I actually had to read that several times. Like it was one of the highlights. So I'm still behind, but I'm going on a plane tomorrow, so hopefully.
It's okay, if you're reading Brene Brown, you can forgive yourself for all that.
But sometimes it's helpful to read after you've heard comments and discussion, and so then I've been able to weave that in.
Yeah, I encourage that. I go back and read things, and then it has a totally different meaning to me also. That part I also read multiple times. Like, oh, that's interesting. It gives you permission. I mean, as women, sometimes putting other people first is such it's so valued. I think it is very valuable, but as important as that is doing the same for yourself, which requires actually being more aware of the negative messages that you might be sending to yourself. You had a question? Did you have a question?
No, I have also impressed on authenticity about this article, that it's more maybe safe on this crowd, and authenticity is not safe every time, all time, but it's more honest and more also kind of way of life and be yourself. Like authenticity, it's not bad. I mean, like have your own opinion. Maybe it's not a group opinion, but be yourself.
Yeah. And what you're saying, I couldn't.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Authenticity. Yeah. And was, I think, were you saying that, I liked her part about you don't necessarily want to be vulnerable with everyone or be authentic with everyone. Like, it's
okay to be not authentic.
yeah, because
Now I'm getting tempted with that word.
authentic.
She said like to be with people, like share with people who have
You
earned-
trust. Yes.
and who earned the right to listen. Like,
Yes. So valuable. And I think about it as I have a daughter and a son too, like to want to model for them the same thing, like to be open but choose their friends wisely and the people that, there's this concept of trust that a colleague of mine that I talked to you about, she's a professor at Hopkins who trains doctors in really in empathy, but doctor-patient communication, one of the things they were studying was trust. And how trust isn't something that, it's relative to each relationship. So in other words, you don't trust one person for everything. There's pieces about people that you trust and there's pieces that you don't. And knowing that allows you to really fully embrace them. Like, I might trust you to go work out with me in the morning because you're gonna be on time, but I might not trust you to, you know, be there when we have a task to organize a party together or something like this. So that idea, I really like that concept of not making, you know, of being more flexible around things you trust and like your own kids. There's certain things you'll trust and the other things maybe you need to build out more systems around. I don't trust my kids are gonna make their bed in the morning, they're just not.
I had 2 experiences this week where I realized I was absolutely pulling from this course.
Oh.
One was, I mean, to me it was big because I'm a huge dog lover, but one of my coworkers had to put her dog down yesterday. And Susan, you're actually, by the way. So it was so sad. It was like we were together during the day, we were all going to have lunch, and she got the call that she had to go immediately because they thought they were going to be able to help him. And she had to go right then and there. And it was really like, I run away from, I was in the car, I wasn't running anywhere, but like, I don't join into things when there's a lot of sadness. I tend to like not know what to say, and I know that I do that and I hate that, but I'm definitely that person who struggles with that. And she wrote me that night, we talked a little bit, she sent me an email, and I just wrote back, that must have been really hard. Like, it came like so much easier to know what to say rather than, what do you say, you know? And to me, it's a family member, I'm sure many of people agree with that, and like, I would not have known what to say if I did not have that to pull from immediately. Like, where would I go with empathy? Right here. And that was so helpful. I think that's gonna help me with that moving forward. And as an administrator, I have those situations often. You know, we had a child this week who had a seizure at school, at the camp, and had to be rushed to the hospital. And I took the number home with me, and I always make the call, but I always struggle with it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I knew what to say. That was amazing. And then the other thing was my older daughter gets nasty with my little one, and the little one's the one who struggles, and it drives me crazy. So I went outside with her and I said, there's 2 things I feel like when this happens. One is I feel really bad for Tali because she's upset, and she's my child, and a parent never wants to see their child upset. And the other is that I feel like I'm not doing a good job as a parent when you're handling it that way.
I'm gonna copy that.
Absolutely changed her demeanor. And I thought she'd be upset with me for saying that, but she was like, okay. I mean,
she got it.
Totally different than her keeping her defenses up in my reaction.
Yeah, none of that was an attack on
No, it was very calm, and she like really, I said it's upsetting to me because I know you're a good person, and so it's upsetting to me that I'm not teaching you the way to handle a situation as a parent. She totally disarmed her. I've never seen, and then with 5 minutes she apologized to her sister. She like was totally like, I had bought her something for her horse, not her horse, somebody else's horse that she borrowed. And she was like, came right in the other room about a half an hour later and said, thank you for buying that for me.
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I realized, but she wasn't mad at me because our interaction was different. And so it's
so
working.
I'm so glad to hear that. I found the same with my own kids. Like, I don't get it right all the time, but I can step back, and I'm so grateful for all the people that came before me and taught me this. Is like, I can't imagine all the other things that I could have done, but I'm so grateful when I am able to step back and then I see them the way they really are. Because it's so easy to be like, oh.
It made me less angry too.
Yes, that's
It really was like,
yeah.
I was not angry.
Yeah.
I got a chance to say it, and it was real meaningful, and I wasn't angry. It was really incredible.
Huh.
So thank you.
I love that. Thank you. So, any questions on the green reading in Lossa's school? That was chapter 4. title of that chapter?
Let's get
Oh, get it
started.
started, uh-huh.
It talked about more like plan B.
Plan A, Plan B.
And then the strategy for goal.
Yes, so that's what we're gonna be learning more today, is the Plan B. I do it a little differently than he does, but. So no questions, anything resonate?
Both books are really good.
What'd you say?
They're getting, both books are now
Oh,
really
good,
good.
good. And then how about the video? The power of vulnerability?
Yeah.
Great, right? Yeah, so funny. I love her example of how she, my favorite part was when she, like her husband was playing basketball at night and, you know, actually the whole thing started with her dropping coffee on herself. And she was like, damn it, Steve. And like had nothing to do with anything, and then she goes back and explains how she didn't get enough sleep last night because she was up late waiting for him who was playing basketball, and you know, like how like it happened so fast, like a nanosecond. I thought it was hilarious. Damn it. All right, so collaborative goal setting. Same kind of flow or agenda of the other skills. I'm going to talk about what it is, and then why we're even going to be using this process for dealing with and addressing problems and goals. And then we're going to show you some examples. I'm going to run through a few of them and then have you apply them to some of your own personal examples. So this skill is a process. It's a process. Empathy is a process too, but in particular there are steps to this. And it's a process for setting and achieving goals that involves both the adult and the child. And satisfies the needs of both. So there's so many reasons why it's important, but one of the things I think you'll notice with each of these skills is that they really do fulfill basic human needs. And I find that when needs aren't met, kids act in destructive ways. So when you can find a way to meet the need, then you see the behaviors go down. And this one in particular there's a basic human need for feeling confident, for feeling like you have the ability to affect positive change, and all of us need it. When it's not going well, what it feels like is you feel like you're in a power struggle, or this kid is just manipulating me, or they're just defiant. Usually, that's the first sign they need some level of feeling like they have some control and ability to affect positive change. That's the skill. It's also, and again, the confidence piece, not only is it a core need, it's one of the common factors that account for resilience. Remember, it was confidence and some skill, quality relationships with an adult, and ability to regulate your emotions. It also teaches, this whole process, it teaches executive functioning skills. I think it's the best way to teach a child how to think through and strategize and think ahead of time about consequences, because not a lot of our kids have that ability these days. I think it's getting worse with electronics. So again, you have the ability to do that just by dealing with things that have to do with your relationship or problems, areas that you're seeing them struggle with right in front of you. So executive function skills, executive functioning, like that. Does anybody want to comment on executive function skills? So the executive functions are those that are the higher level thinking skills. They have to do with being able to focus attention, plan, think about consequences ahead of time.
Like being 5 steps ahead.
Yeah,
Like if you're going to the airport, you know, I need my passport, I need this, knowing that ahead of time.
that's exactly what it is. And actually, it's the last part of the brain to develop that it's in the frontal lobe. So a lot of kids, they don't have that skill. But that, one of the best ways to build it is by consistently going through a process when you're making decisions with them.
Dan, do you have like an age idea for development for that? That's something I'm always trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
Unfortunately, the frontal lobe isn't fully developed until late adolescence, like some as late as like 27. Now,
So our 4-year-olds are.
so, right, they don't, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of variability, and that by doing by making things routine, it'll look like they have a lot of executive function skills, because you're doing it with them all the time. So a young child might really look like they have that ability, and they might, like they have pieces of it. Maybe one kid's better at like thinking ahead or focusing their attention. But it is a function in the, it is a part of the brain that's.
I think we see it as, I see it in babies even as early as when you
They know what to
start to
expect.
pick, like if you're changing their diaper and you go to put their pants back on, they lift up their butt without
Yes.
even being told, and that's kind of already knowing what's,
Anticipating.
it starts right there, I feel like.
Yeah,
They don't know what you need them to do, but they do it.
because you're doing it consistently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I look for that diapering video. I still, I can't find it. I will find it, I have it, I don't. But that's the idea, the routines. This skill used to be a skill of, the same idea was called structuring by Dr. Gurney, which was about setting up routines ahead of time so it increased their likelihood of being successful. So with a young baby, if you don't want to run around saying no, you baby-proof areas. Like, it gives them a sense of competence by just structuring and setting up routines. So that's kind of the essence of this skill, and the way I'm going to talk about it today is how you do that in conversations. But it's the same thing as being able to, it's like problem solving ahead of time. And it fosters responsible decision making. I like linking it back to the social and emotional skill that it maps onto, which involves the ability to make constructive and respectful choices about personal behavior based on your values and valuing other people and their points of view. So how does it work? So there's 6 steps, and I created an acronym. It's a bit of a stretch that will help you remember it, and it's dissect the problem. So the step 1 is just describe everyone's concerns. So describe the problem. I'm going to go through an example. The second one is just identify the goals. So usually we're focused on problems and not goals. So one of the really powerful things is just listening for what the person might want to have happen or need to have happen. Very different than want sometimes. Like, yes, I want the blue sippy cup. What might they need? Maybe to have more choices. Brainstorming solutions together and then evaluating those. See, as you're going through this with them, now you're training their brain to do the same thing when they're faced with decisions. And then choosing a plan and scheduling a time to touch back. So as you see, it's really the first 3 steps that are the hardest ones, and then it kind of flows. So you remember this video? I'm going to play it again and see if you can see the steps that she's using in here. The describing everyone's concerns is where you use empathy to get a clear idea of what everyone's concerned about and a personal message to clarify your own. That's key. The goals, identifying composite goals means at some point you identify every person's goals, including your own. So see if you notice that here. Brainstorming solutions is self-explanatory.
You have one idea about the doll and he has another idea? Were you playing in that room and then Maxwell came in? You wanted him to move his doll aside? What's going on, Cricket? I'm too young. Oh, you both want to be in there at the same time. Oh, you don't even want him to play. So, you know what, I'm worried that Maxwell's going to feel left out.
She's still here.
Oh, so you really want him to not move your stuff and raise his doll away? Stop it! So, I really can't see what's happening here, but you guys have different, I would like everybody's hands to come up so we can talk about
That's kind of the goal.
So Rose and Cricket had their doll in the bed. And their dolls were covered up with a blanket, right? And then Maxwell brought his doll and he had a different idea. So what can we do? What can we do when we all three play with the bed at the same time? That's not working because we have, I want you to stop for just a second and just listen. What can we do? You can share the bed. Does that mean everybody's dog could go in it, Rose? Does anybody have another idea? Another bed. Oh, get another bed. What else could you do? Because you guys were kind of getting frustrated with each other. I saw Maxwell even push Cricket's mom. He did not want her to do that because he had a different idea. So do we want to get a different bed? Or do we want to let all the dogs go in the same bed? Does that sound good to you, Maxwell? Yeah. All right, can you look for a different bed? Where's the second bed that we can use? How about let's pretend this is the bed? All right, is that okay with you guys? We're going to pretend this is the bed. So where's the extra bed? That's the extra bed.
So you got it, the idea, right? Did you all hear that? Is that?
It's hard, but, yeah.
You want to come up for there's a couple more.
If I can't hear, I'll come up.
Okay, all right. So what you saw was a plan B that Green talks about in his book. Again, a little different, but the idea is that you are involving them in the process of coming up with a strategy that meets everyone's needs. As opposed to plan A, which is oftentimes the one that comes into our mind. I often think there's sometimes when you are gonna make the decision for the kids. And that would be when you're, like, what would be an example of something that you're going to choose, you're gonna choose the solution. Well, what would be an example of a situation where you wouldn't give them the choice? So safety. So whether or not you put your seatbelt on, right, when you get in the car is something that, for the most part, is gonna be the adult.
Crossing the street.
Crossing the street. Health related. And here's the thing, is that some of these seem pretty obvious, but where most of the time where there's conflict is when we're not clear, or when there's two adults that are clear. So that there are certain things that the adult is gonna choose. There's other things you're gonna let the child choose completely, like maybe which color they choose to color with is one that usually preschool teachers can agree on. But you might not agree on, some people might disagree on whether or not you let them use scissors or not, or what they color on. And so what the important thing is that there's a balance in each of these areas. So, you know, this idea of kids having all these choices is good, and then sometimes too many is also true. But the real key to this is making sure that you have a balanced number of choices that the child makes, choices that the adults make, and then choices you make together. This skill is for things you make together. And so where there's conflict is where if you're not clear yourself, or if you're working with your partner or another teacher who have different ideas on whether or not you give the child a choice. Example. Some people feel like if it's cold, they just put their coats on. If you're gonna go outside, you put your coat on. Other people feel like, I'm not gonna force them to do that. When they're cold, natural consequence, they'll come and put their coat on. And so there's a lot of difference, and the difference sometimes is based on maybe the children you've had. Like my daughter, if I let her make the choice, every time she's not gonna put her coat on and she's gonna get outside, she's gonna sit there and cry and freeze, and it still doesn't occur to her to run inside and put the coat on. I don't feel like dealing with it. So that is not her decision. But my son, he knows, like he just has a different feedback mechanism. So again, the point is that when we're doing this skill right now, we're assuming that it's in the area of you're gonna open it up for making decisions together. So what I'm gonna show you are some videos where I think we get tripped up. We often think that there's not an option for Plan B, and I think most of the time there's always an option. Most of the time, seatbelt isn't really an option. But in this different scenario, so I'm gonna show you the same scenario 3 different times. One where the adult enforces their own rule, another where they let the child make the decision, and then the Plan B. So it's kind of funny, actually. I hear this all the time. So this is over toothpaste. This is over brushing your teeth. Okay.
Getting tired of arguing with you about brushing your teeth. I'm not spending good money on the dentist just because you won't brush. So from now on, no TV at night until your teeth are brushed.
I'm not brushing them. Not until you buy me toothpaste I like.
The toothpaste is fine. You know the plan, now you go and do it.
Why don't you ever listen to me?
I'm done listening. No brush teeth, no TV.
Listen when I have dirty teeth then.
Oh, we all know that feeling, right? And in this mind, you're thinking, well, no, of course there's no compromise. He's just gonna brush his teeth. But there actually is. And this happens so often. And you're like freaking out, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna put a consequence on you. But deep down, you know that feeling when you know they're not gonna do it anyway. Like, what else can you do? Okay, so. Right, that occurs to you, but you know when you're in that power struggle, you can't even think. You can't even think. I'm just mad and I wanna win.
Sounds like a lot of other things are going on in your life. If we're gonna get.
Okay, so here's Plan C. Child.
It's time to brush your teeth.
I'm not brushing my teeth.
Okay.
All right.
Teeth will fall out, okay.
Okay. All right, so here's Plan C. This is from the Ross Green site. So again, the way they do empathy is a little different, but hopefully you can see. I think the solution they come up with is a little ridiculous, but it still works. So just suspend judgment for a minute, okay?
Brushing your teeth. I'm not really sure why, but something happens.
I don't really like the way the toothpaste tastes. It tastes terrible.
Don't like the toothpaste. No, we've had that problem before. But now you like the new toothpaste.
Well, I did, but I don't anymore.
Okay, so the new toothpaste doesn't taste good anymore, and that's making it unhealthy.
Empathy.
Yep.
All right, I'm not saying you have to use a toothpaste you don't like. The thing is, we've been through a lot of different toothpaste trying to find one you don't like, and you haven't really liked any of them. I'm concerned that if you don't brush your teeth, you're gonna
Personal
get cavities,
message.
and you'll have to spend a lot of money at the dentist. So I wonder if there's something we can do about the taste of the toothpaste so that you'll still brush your teeth and not get cavities. Do you have any ideas?
Well, I could brush my teeth without toothpaste.
That's an idea. You wouldn't use any toothpaste at all?